Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 36. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm not bad. Not too bad. How are you?
Aye, good. Finally got my hair cut. I don't know if you noticed under the headphones. It looks kind of the same.
I'm just gonna open up Zoom so I can have a closer look at you. Oh, it looks good. Yeah, I've done the opposite. I'm just letting it.
You went for a hair grow
this
instead of a haircut.
I'm just gonna do it again. I'm just gonna let it grow again.
Yeah,
why not? I'm not seeing anybody. You know.
Yeah, well,
I'm not going to see anybody for a while, so it is what it is.
It is what
just
it
myself
is.
in the mirror.
Oh no, what a sight!
I feel like that's becoming my catchphrase right now. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're back for part 2 of music theory because the last one was starting to get really complicated and we were talking about loads of stuff.
Yeah, it kind of went on for, it was like an hour long and we were only halfway through the episode, so yeah. No one should be subjected to over an hour of music theory, so we're back. So the last episode we dealt with rhythm theory, so like time signatures, cross rhythms, polyrhythms, tuplets, tempos, and we also did harmony, like chords and chord names and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So today we're going to continue on with a couple more. I don't think this will be as long, just wrapping it up. And I have started making some sort of easy cheat sheet PDFs to help get to grips with this stuff. So basically I'm going to split down every topic into its own PDF. So we'll have a PDF on like rhythm. So like it'll have basic time signatures and what they are and how you can apply it to a band, and not just some like music theory class from high school where 90% of the stuff you learn you will never ever use again. Italian terms and all that stuff. There's no point in learning that stuff. Not for this. So I've kind of made it really, really simple to understand. So hopefully we'll have that done soon to kind of coincide with this podcast coming out. Apologies if it's not up yet. It's my fault for being too lazy. Anyway, so we'll start with this episode with keys. We kind of finished on chords and harmonies and stuff. We touched on keys a bit, but we'll go into it a bit more with key signatures and stuff. So,
all right. Okay, let me engage my brain so I can think about how to actually explain this to someone.
Yeah.
So keys. Well, let's start with physical keys. So I'm just going to grab my keyboard, like the absolute unit that I am. So there's keys on a keyboard.
Correct.
There's one, if we're not repeating some, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 keys.
12
right?
keys, yeah.
That's how many keys there are. So let's just focus on major keys, right? So that's all basically all the way from like C major all the way up to like B major. We'll just talk about major just because it's a little simpler. When we talk about a key, we talk about I guess a key center, which is just it's almost, the way to think about it is kind of like it's like a tonal profile, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's just like an area of it's just an area of sound that you're working within, right? So if we're talking about the key center of C, we have a bunch of chords that are available to us in that key center. Okay, so the first one being C, C major, this C chord, right? And then by extension we have you know, if we go up the scale, so we have C, and then we have D, then we have D minor, and then we have E, then that's an E minor chord, and then we have an F, which is an F major chord, and a G, G major, A minor, B diminished, kind of a thing. So I'm rambling. I'm confused. I've confused myself. Keys are hard. It's a really weird thing to try and explain. But I
would say, like, to keep it simple,
yeah.
I would say that if 9 times out of 10, if you're singing a song, the melody that the singer sings will 9 times out of 10 fall in the notes that are in the key of the song.
Yeah, that's right. Fall in a key center, right? So your singer might be more comfortable singing in like E flat or F. I'm trying to think of like really awkward like singer keys. D flat. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But so it's useful to get to know all of these. This is all to do with your scales and stuff like that, which we kind of talked about in harmony.
Yeah.
But in the last episode. But the really cool thing about this is that the way that all these chords are kind of how am I going to talk about the circle of fourths or fifths? I like to call it fourths. Let's just go into it and see what happens. So the circle of fourths is kind of like a way of like structuring and learning all the different key centers, right? So let's say we start on C, right? If we go up 4 notes, right? Up 4 perfect fourths, up to the next perfect fourth, C, D, E, F, right? But when we're in the key of F, what happens is that we add 1 flat to, okay? So that's the very first change, right? And if we go up another fourth, so the fourth of F is B flat, and we start in that key has 2 flats in its scale, right? So B flat and E flat. And if we keep going like that, basically another flat gets added, another flat gets added, another flat gets added. And it's just an interesting little pattern that sort of emerges out of that. So that's how I like to practice all my scales on bass, for example. So rather than, you won't be able to hear this, but might be able to hear it a little bit, but rather than going like and then up a semitone each time, it's much better to go
right.
It just gets you thinking about things,
engages the brain,
scales and things like that, and engages the brain. It just makes you think about it in
a good songwriting tool.
Way. It is a good songwriting tool. You'll actually find that when you analyze a lot of songs, you know, they move in fourths, you know, and this just comes from the, what do you call it? It just comes from the jazz tradition. If you look at a lot of like old jazz songs, which were songs from like old musicals anyway, they all tend to move in that pattern of fourths. Like my favorite one, a really good example of that would be Autumn Leaves. I'm not going to sing it because I'm not feeling in good voice today. But Autumn Leaves, the PDF, there we go. Is this in the original? Yes, it is. The original key is A minor. Okay, so we start with an A minor chord, and then we go A, B, C, D7, and then we go up another 4, D, E, F sharp, G major 7, and then we go up another fourth, and it just keeps moving like that.
Forever,
It is it's just a really good songwriting tool to just be aware of, and it makes you think about.
You'll hear it a lot in film score. To build up stuff, like it can perpetually just keep going up and up and up and up, but it never reaches where it's going to go because it just keeps changing all the time.
There's a name for that kind of tone. Can't remember what it's called. It has a name.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's basically it does give off like kind of illusion. Basically, what happens is that by the time you get through it, you end up back at the start again.
Yeah.
So it is just like an infinite loop.
Yeah.
There's another really cool.
There's another thing that a lot of pop musicians do that's similar to that, but they do it using the bass. So what they'll do is in certain sections of the song, they'll start on the root and they'll descend. The bass line will descend and keep descending, and then eventually land on the home again, and then keep descending and keep descending. There's loads of artists have done that. There's really someone who does it all the time is Jeff Lynne, ELO. The reason he does it is because he loves Roy Orbison, and Roy Orbison did that a lot. The Beatles did it a lot as well. It's got it's constant moving down. But the chords aren't necessarily moving down, but the bass is picking out notes from the chords, and it gives it the feeling as if it's coming down all the time. And I don't know, it gives it a cool sound, a cool feel. It's kind of different, but kind of not. But because it's an infinite scale, because you can just go C up an octave, C up another octave, C, 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 forever and ever and ever. And you can use that to your advantage. So it's just a complete cycle all the time. It's a really cool writing tool. I say that, never writing anything in my life, but I can observe, but it doesn't mean I can do
it. No, you can. You'll do it one day. It's never too late. Anyway, yeah, you're 100% spot on. This kind of being aware of keys is going to be more useful for certain musicians in the band than the others. So, for example, if you're a drummer, this will mean nothing to you, and it's just complete gibberish. Although that being said, the drummer in the wedding band that I play in, it's just really funny. He has perfect pitch, which is so helpful, because our singer will be like, I'm not so sure about singing the song in this key, and he's like, okay, right, I would do it in this key, or like he'll just say to her like, oh, can you start singing it how you would want to sing it, and then he just goes, yep, it's like F or whatever, you know, and which is just ironic because he's just never he only uses it for that. He can't actually like, you know, tune his drums or you know, play whatever. Anyway, I just thought it was kind of funny, but this is going to be mostly useful for everybody else, you know, your guitarist, your bass player, anybody who's doing any kind of writing. Yeah. Really, really important, useful stuff. If you're interested in the circle of fourths and that kind of thing, and this is more for what's it called? I'm just reminding myself of what it's called. Lydian chromatic. It's called the Lydian chromatic concept, right? So it's a book called the Lydian chromatic concept of tonal organization, by a guy called piano player called George Russell, jazz piano player. For those of you who are interested in the circle of fourths and that kind of a thing, and are just wanting to look into it a little deeper, have a little read of that. It's really cool. It's really interesting. It's fascinating stuff. I did a little bit of it in at uni, which is how I know about it. Right. But it's really cool, and you should check it out, even if you play jazz or not. You know, it's still really useful. You know. Yep.
So I think the thing to remember, or the thing to try and do immediately, something that you can do right now, and it's not that difficult, is actually learn all of the key signatures. There's not that many.
No.
And know how many.
12, yeah.
Yeah, so know how many sharps and flats there are. Know what notes are in each scale. So, and know the relative minor as well. So, if I told you the key of this song is the key of C major, but we're playing it in the relative minor, you should be able to go A minor.
Oh, A minor, cool. Yeah.
Right? So that tells you a lot. I think, Julian, you've got a story about that thing.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
So
Please tell it.
I think if I talked to them about it now, they would probably find it funny. I'm not going to say who it is because I'm a good person. And I don't want to embarrass them. But basically, I was playing a gig, and we were playing a particular song, and the person leading the band decided, you know what, we'll just go straight into this other song. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because this song is in this key, and then the next song is also in the same key, so it's kind of genius. And they counted it down. They went 1, 2, 3, and then I start playing it, but everything feels off, and I'm like, what's going on? And they're looking at me, straight at me, just playing away. They're looking at me, and they're like confused, and they don't know what's going on. And they're like, they start shouting, "Oh, no!" So to give you a bit of context, the song that we were playing was in B minor, and the other song was in B minor, right? And he goes, "No, C," and my brain just went, okay, C. He must mean C major, A minor. Okay, cool. So I start playing the tune in A minor. He's like, "No, C minor," and I'm like, gotcha. Eventually, and then I started playing it, and then he gave me. They gave me daggers for like a good 10 seconds. I was like, dude, stop. What? It's not my fault. I didn't mean to do that. So yeah, it's really important. It's really important to know your keys. And there's another lesson in there. Before you decide to segue into another tune, make sure everybody's on board and knows exactly what they're doing.
If you had been going into that tune in B minor in the past and then suddenly decided to make it C minor and not tell anyone, that's probably going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Modulating up a semitone.
It sounded unbelievably spicy. And then we were doing this polytonal, I was chilling in A minor and they were in C minor. So there was all sorts of funky stuff going on.
It's dreadful. So literally just go and learn your key signatures. It's like learning your times tables.
And using the circle of fourths is probably the easiest way to do it, because you go C, no, nothing. F, 1 flat. Yep. B flat, 2 flats. E flat, 3 flats. A flat, 4 flats. D flat, 5 flats. G flat, 6 flats. And then G flat, F sharp, major, because they're kind of the same thing technically. Then you go, 6 flats, 6 sharps, and then from F sharp you go to B, 5 sharps, E, 4 sharps, A, 3 sharps, D, 2 sharps, G, 1 sharp, and then you're back at C with nothing.
Yep.
Genius.
Yep. And then you can do the exact same exercise, but doing all the minor versions. Starting in your A minor, which is the relative minor to C.
Yeah.
And then do the whole thing again.
E, and then A to A to D, that's 1 flat. If you're doing it in fourths, and then D to G, 2 flats. Yeah, it all works exactly the same.
Yep. Yep. Once you know that, you can basically play any pop music, pretty much anything really.
You can play anything.
Yeah, the reason why it's so good is because to be able to just play a song that you've been playing in a different key at the drop of a hat, and just to be able to pick up the instrument and not require a capo.
Yeah, actually, I was actually going to bring in a capo, because this is also kind of important, because for guitarists, to be fair, certain shapes sound a lot better than if you're just barring away constantly. Yeah. So here's what to do. Get your capo and learn, which key you're going to be going in, like what fret, right? So for example, if I'm like, I'm playing stuff in like E flat, then go for capo 3. I'm pretty sure it's capo 3 or it's capo 1. It's one of the two. You know, I'm not a guitarist, so I don't know. But like, learn where your most common capo places are going to be for certain keys and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're absolutely, you're winning.
Yeah.
If you can do that. You know, you can play anything in any key with your bar chords or whatever, but then you can also utilize a capo as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Same goes for keyboard as well, actually. There was some tunes I used to use my transpose button. If the key was changed, like say I was like, if it was like a funky keyboard part, I prefer to use you're about to
the
say
black keys, Superstition,
Superstition, Stevie Wonder. It's all black keys. Well, for the most part, for the main riff, it's all black keys. And trying to play that on anything else, like, and say if it was like it's E flat minor. If you were playing it in C minor, it would just the fingering would be all weird, and because you kind of smack the black keys, you kind of hit them percussively.
You're playing drums. Yeah,
you're playing drums
basically
on keyboards, and you couldn't really do that in any. If the singer's like, oh, can we do it in E minor or D minor, I would just transpose. Like, if I'm playing a real clavinet, then I'm screwed because you can't play it the same way. You just can't. So, yeah, if I was playing my keyboard, I would sometimes use the transpose. And if it was just like a normal tune, unless they were putting it in some disgusting key like B major or something, where I had to use loads of black keys, I would just go, ugh, sod this. I'll just keep it in and I'll just press my transpose. As long as you remember to untranspose it for the next song. So, learn all the major and minor scales for every key, and know them by names. Know all the sharps and all the names of the sharps and the flats. It's not that difficult. There's probably more times tables to learn than there are. Yeah, there definitely is. It will help you so much, honestly. So much. It'll
change your life.
Oh yeah, totally. So moving on to
so
notation.
You learn all these key signatures and you learn all these scales, but what do they look like? How can you read them?
Yeah.
Well, we figured out a way somehow through years of trial and error.
Yep.
So the most common way, I don't know where these signs come from or their origin or whatever, but they're called clefs. It's basically a little sign at the start of whatever you're reading. And your most common ones that you're going to see, there's more, but a lot of them are like, one of them is exclusively just used for the viola, and the other one is sometimes used for cello music, and it's just it's just pointless. So the main ones you're going to see are your treble clef and your bass clef. And your treble clef is the one that, if you don't know anything about music, you know the clef. You know exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's unmistakable.
Everyone has a tattoo.
It's a weird, like, squiggly shape. Everyone has some kind of tattoo or something
necklace
that involves it, that has it. Yeah. And then you have your bass clef, which some people do still know. It kind of looks like, it's actually, so this blew my mind when I found out about it. The treble clef is actually supposed to be a fancy G.
Yeah, it's a G clef.
It's also known as the G clef. And the bass clef is also known as the F clef. So it's like a little sort of like little wibble like that with like two dots next to it, right? And they're used in piano. So like the treble clef will be used for anything that's being played on the right hand. It's usually the top clef, the top line, and then the bass clef is being used for anything that's played in the left hand when it sits at the bottom. But certain instruments use these different types of clefs. So guitar, for example, it's all written in treble clef. All bass stuff is generally written in bass clef.
Yep.
Flutes, anything that's generally considered quite a sort of high-pitched instrument in general, treble. And anything that is kind of like low, with a couple of exceptions, like bass clarinet and things like that. They're all written. All of that is written in treble clef, which is bizarre. Yeah.
I think timpani's written in bass clef. I can't remember. I used to play timps. Not relevant.
It depends. It depends. And like trombone is one of those really interesting ones where generally it's written in what you call it, in bass clef. But if you're in a like in a brass band kind of a thing, then all the music's in treble clef, and it's like, but you have to transpose it. It's not like it's bizarre. It's insane. It's really weird. But yeah, so where was I going with this? Yeah, so if an instrument is high pitched, treble clef. If an instrument is low pitched, like a bass guitar or a double bass or cello or bassoon or whatever, bass clef. We'll do a little. Once I do the sheet, I'll explain how to read the different clefs. It's generally you want to know how to read them. It's quite good. It opens up so many opportunities and things, just being able to read music. For looking at stuff, learning stuff, like if you can read music, you can basically read everything that's been written up until now. If you can read music and you're like, I want to learn how to play some Bach on bass, you can do that. You can just get some Bach. I love Bach. But you can just get some Bach and just learn it like that, If you're like, if you're getting into classical music and you want to follow a score, well, guess what? If you can read music, you can follow the score, and you can, being able to read music, it's basically like, it's like being able to learn how to just read in general, right?
Yeah. So it's a new language.
It is. It's exactly that. It's just like it's exactly like learning how to read a language. So you can spend all this time, learning how to, you can spend a lot of time getting proficient and knowing how to talk, but you're gonna get way more proficient if you can also learn how to read as well. And so you're gonna, you can access so many different fonts of knowledge, kind of like how in real life, if you learn how to read books, then you can practically learn anything, so it's really important. And when with all, obviously with that, there's also rhythms.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I was just about to say that whenever I play something complicated on the drums, or I'm forced to play something that's kind of tricky, like any weird polyrhythms or weird time signatures and stuff, when I'm playing it, this is really strange actually, I picture how it looks on a sheet of notation.
Same.
I've done that ever since I could learn to read that. Before, it was very abstract in my head and I couldn't picture what I was trying to play, but the minute I could picture the bar and the rhythm on the bar, I had that sort of ingrained in my head, especially some of the more technical stuff, where you've got changing time signatures every bar. It's
really spooky that you...
What were you going to say?
It's really spooky that you mentioned that. No, because it's... I have the same thing, but when it comes to like harmonizing, right? Like if I have to put like chords to a tune, the only way I really struggle to do it if I can't physically see the music like written out, for the most part, if I can really try, if I can really think about it, then I can get by. But being able to just see the music, it triggers something else, and then I can actually go, all right, that's an E, and then I can think about all the notes and that go around it that work with it, kind of a thing. So yeah, that's kind of weird. I think it's a human thing you have, but
it's a human thing. It's like a human psychology thing. Like it's
like a pattern seeking thing.
Yeah, when you learn a way of communicating, you begin to think in that way. Like for example, when you think, you don't think abstract thoughts. You usually think in your own language. So I was speaking to someone about this, and I don't know what it's like for you. Like, when you think, depending on the context, do you think in English or Spanish?
Well, if I'm in an English situation,
Yeah,
then I think in
English.
English, and if I'm in a Spanish situation, I think in Spanish. But
Yeah.
I have found that when I'm thinking really hard about something, if it's something that's like life changing or difficult or something, I start thinking in Spanish.
Yeah.
Because I think that's that's kind of like the default like state for my brain to sort of go into.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's the first it's the first foundation of language that you had, so you go back to that.
Yeah.
So I think like learning this language of music helps open up parts of your brain, and you process things differently. There's avenues of thinking that are cut off from you if you don't know how to read it. Like I said, when I'm thinking about complex rhythms, before I kind of just mimicked how other drummers would play it. Until I learned how to write it and read it, I understood it, and I began thinking about how it's written in my head. And every time I approach a passage that's difficult, I can picture it in my mind, and it comes across clearer. My playing increased in accuracy. Rather than just flying by the seat of my pants all the time, I actually had a frame of reference in my mind. I don't know. I think it helps. It's a weird human thing. You can't really think about a thing unless you have a concept of it.
Yeah.
If there's no concept of it, then you don't even know to think about it. It's a bizarre thing. Yeah, it's not difficult to learn. It's not as difficult as learning a language. It really isn't.
No.
There's a lot less to it.
It's honestly, it's so easy.
And you don't need advanced training in it to be able to accomplish this. Your basics is all you need to get a foundation.
Here's a fun little fact for you. So see in Hungary, right? Everybody there, in one way or another, knows how to read music. And the reason for that is because they teach music with the same kind of importance that English and mathematics and things like that are taught. Mostly because they see it as like a quality of life thing. They use I might have a couple of things. I might be over exaggerating here, but they use a teaching system called Pt.2, which is how I actually learned how I learned music, and it was invented by a Hungarian composer called Zoltán Kodály, and it's just because it just gets taught from a very young age, like kids just sing all the time in class, in like primary school and stuff like that, and play rhythm games, and then it's just generally accepted as like a very normal thing for people to like join choirs, as hobbies and stuff like that. And everybody in one way or another, kind of in the same way that everybody, after I left school, like I know how to read, I know how to do basic arithmetic, except in Hungary, everybody can read, everybody can do, most people can read, most people can do basic arithmetic, and most people can read like choral sheet music. Yeah. As well, which is just really, it's just really cool. It's just fascinating. But honestly, like it's not that hard. It's just that it just takes it maybe takes a little while at the start, but
it's like learning anything.
So good for you.
It gives you so much more scope. If you're in a band and you don't know how to do this stuff, it gives you so much more scope for creation, and it'll help your playing as well. When you start to internalize these concepts and they become second 100%. Nature. We're going to go on to rhythms there. This is something that really helped me learning your rhythms. So both reading music and playing at the same time, and also playing without music and imagining the music in your head. I don't do it all the time. I only do it when it's really complex passages. Trying to think of examples. There's a couple of examples in the stuff we play. I'll be getting to a passage and I'll be thinking, oh yeah, there's a 4/4 bar, and remember that little 2/4 bar that's coming after this. Don't let that trip you up. And I can because that can be disastrous. It's usually the simple stuff that always trips you up because you spend so much time thinking about the complex stuff that you forget the simple stuff. So rhythms, learning how to read rhythms. So when you're in the studio, and we talked about this a little bit last time, when you're playing a drum fill that you maybe play a triplet fill, like it's like a straight song, so just a straight rock beat, like dun dat dun dun dat dun dat du 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 dun dat. That's a triplet.
Yeah.
Right. So the way that it's written, the way it's played, all of that can be written on music. And I've found when I learned how to write and name that type of fill, my accuracy in playing it became better because I actually understood where the notes are supposed to fall on the beat or on the bar. So knowing that da 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 da, playing those two rhythms together, I learned how to play those two rhythms together, like one in one hand and one in the other, and do a sort of polyrhythm thing. And you can actually sit with like a music sheet software like Sibelius, and you can write out those notes alongside each other, and you can see where they fall on top of each other. You're like, sometimes they hit together and sometimes they don't. I really love doing rhythms like that, where you've got one hand playing something and another one playing something totally different, and then occasionally they'll come down together. But in the past, you didn't realise this, and maybe they'd be slightly out, and that would just cause problems because things would go out of time and things would become sloppy and fall apart. But when you get that concept learned, like this amount of notes should fit into this amount of notes on this hand, and when you have that concept, it all just like locks in together. But if you've got no knowledge to begin with, then it's just all blah, and you just mimic it. It sounds like this. It's like when you hear foreign people sing English songs, they mimic the sounds of it. Do you know? That's kind of what it's like, because they don't know the language. It's exactly like that.
My mum,
actually.
Oh, my mum has some absolute crackers. Just from like, you know, because she used to go to like youth clubs and stuff when in the 70s, and they played like, you know, like English pop music, or like British American, you know, kind of like pop music. And some of the misheard lyrics that I've heard from her are some absolute. It's just some absolute. Oh, it's so funny. There's actually, you reminded me. There's a video. It's funny regardless of whether you speak Spanish or not. It's even funnier if you speak Spanish and English. But there's a guy calling into a radio, and he's asking for a specific song. And in English, it's the song is "This Is the Rhythm of the Night."
Yep.
You know, this is the rhythm of the night.
Yeah.
My life. That one. He calls in and he's like, "Could you play Son Reebok or Son Nike?" Which is basically in Spanish. Let me translate that for you. Are they Reebok, as in like the trainers, or Nike, as in like Nike?
Reebok, Nike.
Reebok or Nike, yeah. And the guy's like, "Esos son Reebok o son Nike?" And the guy who's like on the phone, like on the radio, is like, "Esos son Reebok o son Nike?" I don't know if I have that one, man. Like, are you sure? And the guy's like, "Yeah, no, like you know, it's like it's also." And then the guy just goes, "Wait a minute. Do you mean this song?" And he plays it, and the guy's like, "Yeah, that one." Start freaking out. Oh, sorry, a little bit of a tangent. But
was it your cousin that used to sing "Hulele Sosa"?
Yes.
Yeah.
To Who Let the Dogs Out?
Yeah.
And the classic like dance tune from back in the day, Pump Up the Volume. Like pump up the volume,
Yeah.
right? My mum used to think it was Get the Reparium. Well, it's just gibberish. It means nothing.
Yeah.
It was like Get the, it's like what, it, and then gibberish word. Like, fun. Really, really funny.
So that's what it's like when you don't know how to read and write music.
Yes.
And you try to interpret rhythms. It becomes a sloppy mess to people who understand it. It might sound fine to you, but until you learn that language, it's just mimicking.
Exactly. Oh man, that was funny.
Cool.
Anyway, so now we learn all our keys, we learn all our harmony, we've learned all our time signature and notation, and now we need to learn how to write it all down.
Yeah.
So there's three kind of ways that I think if you're ever going to be writing anything down, it's going to be the most useful for you. So 3 things that you're going to find yourself writing a lot. One of them, not so much unless you're a guitarist, but you've got chord charts, you've got your tab, and then you've got what I call a lead sheet. But I'll explain what that is, right? So a chord chart is pretty self-explanatory. Learning how to write a good chord chart is so important. I'll write up a couple of examples in a PDF that people can download so they can have a look. I'll do like a pretty like popular song or whatever, so you can get the idea. But basically, like if anything, like a chord chart is going to be like one of the most useful things that you're going to be able to know how to write. And all you need to know for that really is just your time signatures, your chords and your keys.
Yeah.
And that's about it. And then just generally knowing how to write, in bars and like, repeat signs and that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But if you know how to do a really nice one, you can knock out a chord chart in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Easy.
In a rehearsal space, just bam, 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 for if somebody needs it. And then there you go, you give it to them and you're good to go.
I was going to add in, there's different applications. So 9 times out of 10, if you're saying you're playing in a covers band or even just music of your own, a chord chart will get you through most of the time. So you'll have your chord chart. It'll be like C, then F, then G, and you'll have like the chord symbol, and then you'll have wee slashes or dashes to indicate beats, and then a bar, and then you'll do that times 2 or whatever. But on some pieces of music, if you're like getting covers and stuff, you will have a bit in the song that is a line that is specific, and you have to play it as written. So you'll maybe have, I'm thinking of one song in particular, I don't know why it came into my head, because it just did. I play in a wedding band. Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder.
Yep.
You can get a chord chart for that, and I think it's an E flat. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. So you've got the chords, so you can just play your wee strummy chords. So it's and it's all fine. Verse, and then you can use chord symbols and chord charts for that, and then it gets to the riff, the line, the sort of hook bit. And it's bum, ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum, ba-da-ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-dum. Right?
Yeah.
So that has to be written. You can't have a chord chart for that. So you'll maybe see some chord charts like that. You'll have chord, and then there's maybe 8 bars or 4 bars of written music. You have to play that line as it's written, and then it goes back to the chord charts. So that was all I wanted to add in there.
Yeah, no, that's right. And that actually kind of leads in really well to the next thing, which is kind of like, it's almost like the next step up, which is your lead sheet.
Yeah.
Which is basically, it's like a chord chart, but there's a melody written in there.
Okay.
That's it, right? So there's 2 different kind of versions you can get. One, which is like the melody of like a song with lyrics.
Yeah.
I've seen that quite a lot. And maybe they've like written the melody, the chorus, like the verse and the chorus, like the melody for the first time, and then you've got the rest of the lyrics like at the bottom,
Aye.
kind of a thing, and then you have the chords and in general structure, kind of a thing. The lead sheets actually come from the jazz tradition, and it's just a really good shorthand way to just go, right, here's the full piece, you know, and then you can just structure it on the fly.
Is
you know, you can.
Is that what you would get if you download off of ultimateguitar.com for chords and stuff? Those little chord websites?
No.
Because it's
not
like lyrics
quite.
and chords together.
No, because this actually has written music.
Oh,
in it.
okay.
Like if you were to download something from like Guitar, I'll send you a link to what I'm talking about. You will have seen it about before. So yeah, it's just we use this quite a lot actually in Eriska. We use like you know, somebody will have like written a tune, and you know, will have put some basic chords over the top, kind of a thing. And it's just a really good starting.
It's basically just keyboard music.
Yeah.
Basically.
Basically. It's just really, and it's a really good way to just get to know the structure of a song really, really quickly.
That's how I learned. That's how I learned music. That's how I learned keyboard. So you play the melody in your right hand, and then you can play your chords in the left hand. That's kind of how you did your home keyboard type stuff. You would do it in school. If you took keyboard in school, that's the type of stuff you would read. Yep.
There you go. Yeah.
Include an example in the PDF.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, I'll do something like that. Yeah. But you get the idea. You know, it's that's your sort of next step up from the chord chart. That's if you're going to be doing stuff that's maybe a little bit more complicated. You know, it's just generally quite a good thing to have. And then tab's an interesting one. So I'm gonna trigger some people. As a bass player, I do use tab sometimes, but what I mean by that is that I use it as a way of what's the word? I use it as a way of like I'm trying to think. What's the word? Chronicling? No, that's but like taking down like a specific way of like playing a riff or a chord, you know.
Oh, you mean like on the neck?
Documenting kind of a thing, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's what I use tab for. If I found, this particular way of playing it really works, then I use tab to remind myself of that.
Yeah, because you can't do that with notation.
Thing. Yeah, or if I've written a part and for a band that I play in, right? I've written a part and I'm like, this is going to be really hard for somebody to read first time, you know, if they're... So what I will do is I'll just add a little line of tab underneath just to highlight what it actually is. And it's just a little extra like, all right, okay, cool. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Okay.
So that's how I use tab. Generally, it isn't a good idea to know how to read it, but don't depend on it too much. You know, that's kind of how I explain it to my pupils anyway. It's like it's a little guideline there for you if you need it, if you're stuck on something, you know. But don't ever go into learning a piece of music and just look at the tab, because you're not going to learn anything that way.
No.
You're just going to be looking at a bunch of numbers.
Tab, from what I understand, tab is really, really good at telling you how to physically place your fingers on the fretboard. It tells you exactly where to place them, but it doesn't tell you an awful lot about how you should play it or what rhythm. Rhythm's a really hard one.
What notes, or what notes they are.
Yeah, it doesn't tell you what notes they are. You have to just figure that out.
If you see it on like a 5 on like a 4th or a 5th line or something, that means nothing to me. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm actually have to like sit and like look at that physically for a little while and go, oh right, it's that, you know. Whereas if you just show it to me on the music, I'm like, it's that note and that note's there.
Yeah,
there we go.
I think tab's good if you know the tune and you know the rhythm going into it, and it just shows you immediately where to place your fingers on the instrument, and then your memory will take over the rest. Whereas notation tells you everything you need to know, minus the actual shapes.
It doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you the best way to play it.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's better if you can read them both. You know. So tab tells you how to play it, but it doesn't tell you what it is, and then music tells you exactly what it is, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the best way to play it. You know. But then if you put them both together, then
you can get
exactly
tab,
what's happening.
You can get tab for piano as well, or keyboard. And
what?
It's not as complex as guitar tab. Basically, you write in your fingers above the notes, fingering.
Oh, right. That's what you mean. Sorry.
That's as complex as it gets.
Yeah. No, that's
it's not its own thing.
Yeah, because I use that, but in a different way. You know, so I number my fingers like 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Messes me right up
so
because on piano your thumb is 1. So when guitarists say, "Oh, it's your third finger,"
pinky's 5.
Nah, yeah. I can't do the both because they're different. First finger means index finger in guitar language, which it's just no. So I used to learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I used to write it above all the notes to know where to place my finger. Eventually that becomes second nature and you just know where to place your fingers, but that could be like your tab version for keyboard, I suppose. You can get tab chords as well, so they show you on a little bit of tab of what fingers to use for a chord, and that's quite handy for like chord voicing if you want it to be voiced
when you're learning them for the first time, it's really useful. Eventually, like, you should be able to just learn. You should just know them off by heart, kind of a thing. But
there's sometimes in the studio, like, there'll be a guitarist and he's playing a chord, and I'll be like, I know the chord's right, but there's something not right, and I'll maybe stop and I'll say, "Can you play that chord any different? Is there any other voicing you can get?" And then they play another voicing and it sounds much better. The chord's the same, but the voicing's different.
Yeah.
And it can change the tone of the music by where you actually play the chord. And that can be written down in tab, to show you where you actually place your fingers. I would say that's quite handy.
So, really useful to just, regardless of, even if you're not that good of a guitarist, it is useful to just know how to know about tabs, so if you're writing a riff and you know kind of how it should go, then you can tab it out for somebody, and then do it, 100%. But yeah, once you're at that stage where you can write chord charts and lead sheets, the sky's the limit. From there, if you really wanted to, you can learn how to apply that and learn how to write for like multiple instruments or whatever, and then, screw the leveling up my band, I'm going to become a composer now.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
Why not?
I don't know if there's any more money to be made in that, but anyway, you get the idea. Yeah. So...
Yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, that is pretty much it.
There is drum music, which is unique.
Yeah,
drum music is like you write all your drum stuff on the five lines and 4 spaces on the old what do you call it, manuscript. It's not like tab. People call it drum tab, but it's not. It's not. It's really not. So you would usually correspond each line in space. Your standard treble clef.
Yeah.
You've got your E on the bottom. E, G, B, D, F. So each line in space corresponds to a drum. That's kind of how that would go. If anyone doesn't know how to read drum music and wants maybe help or advice, give us a shout, because I know how to read drum music. because it can be quite daunting. If you want to learn how to use it and learn it, I highly recommend you do. There are some really cool books out there that go into it, and there's some more advanced stuff. I learned just sort of high school level drum music, and then I went and did some more advanced stuff just on my own. I learned really advanced drum music stuff by buying Mike Portnoy's signature drum book, and he has like really difficult Dream Theater songs written out in this book, and basically every note he played on the album was tabbed out or written out in drum music. And there was some stuff I would hear him play, I would like, how does he do that? What is he doing there? Because I can't see, there's no video or whatever. And then I would see the written music, and I'm like, oh, he's doing a quintuplet, you know. Oh, I always thought that was triplets, or, you know, and it breaks it down. And then if you still don't know how to do it, you can program it into Sibelius note by note and then play it really slowly and then hear it back. Like there was a drum fill that he does that was just so fast and such a blur, and I was like, what is that? And then you slow it down and it's just so simple. It's like just it's all the same rhythm. It's like, oh, it's that? Is that it? And then all I need to do is learn it and then just play faster. It always sounded complicated, but I wouldn't have been able to figure that out had I not learned how to read drum music. And it improved my playing, just 10 times, tenfold, you know?
Well, that's like, same. Like, I'm kind of glad that I started off on like flute, that kind of a thing, because there is no other way to learn how to read music on it except, you know, because it's a classical instrument. Yeah. It's just one way. And then I did piano as well. And I was so glad that I did that, because it kind of gave me a little bit of a head start with things like that, you know, like learning how to read treble and bass clefs. So when I started doing bass, you know, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can read bass clef, and I know that a C is this note here. And, you know, honestly, it's so... it's
a game changer.
And my sight reading skills that I developed on flute just sort of basically I was able to transfer them over to bass. Like, here's the other thing that's crazy. All of this knowledge is all transferable. You know?
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is, you know. And once you can actually do all this stuff, even learning new instruments it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. You know, it's a doddle, you know? So.
Yeah, it is. Cool. Yeah. We will have some of this stuff up on the website, hopefully by the time this comes out, which is in like 3 weeks' time. So we'll definitely have the rhythm one up, and we'll see what else we can do. And if anyone has any issues or questions, give us a shout. Happy to help. If you're like, if this stuff seems like, blah, it's insane, there's too much stuff, just take it one little bit at a time. Don't just go like right into it and swamp yourself, you know. Deal with the stuff that's relevant to you, you know, that's your immediate concern. Like, oh, I really want to figure out really what time signatures are, because I've kind of put it off. I kind of know 4/4. I kind of know, you know, know what it is, but I've been putting it off. Let me get a proper understanding of what time signatures are. Honestly, it'll help you a lot. Take it one bit at a time. Yeah. Cool. Cool. That kind of wraps up that. We'll probably come back to this sort of stuff later on, but if anyone's want us to cover, like, because we missed out things like modes and things like that. It was just like other things.
Well, I think, like, you know, that's for sure. That's for like way ahead and into the future kind of a thing, because there's no, like, you know, once we start talking about modes, that's like me talking about, you know, I'm trying to think of languages, like, you know, start talking about like certain types of like classical literature or something, like it's going to mean nothing to you.
yeah. Cool. So
Cool.
I don't know what we're planning on next week. Maybe
We never
figure out
do.
something. Yeah, well,
We always come up with something.
cool. So if you want to dive into these topics, go onto the website right now and download some free PDFs and have a look over. If there's something you're struggling with in particular, you can download that particular sheet for you. It's free. It's totally free. And tell your friends, and get the subscribes and the likes. Go and give us a like on YouTube. The YouTube channel is absolutely dying on its backside. It's no one's on it. Everyone seems to be just using the podcast stuff. Fair enough. I mean, watching a video of two guys just talking is kind of boring. There's no much happening.
Well, you're going to put it in the background anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So give us a subscribe on YouTube if you can, and a wee rating on Apple Podcasts. That really helps a lot. Just if 5 people or 10 people do it at one go, Apple's algorithm just go, ooh, this is doing all right, and then it'll just show it in front of a little bit more people, and then those people send a like, and then it shows it in front of more people, and it's like a snowball going down a hill. So do that, please. That'd be nice. And if you get any suggestions for podcast topics or guests or anything, send us a wee message on Facebook or Instagram or our website, levelupyourband.com, and we'll get back to you. So, as always, hope you all had a good week and continue to have all the good weeks, and we will see you the next week. So, bye.
Bye.